You're going to be responsible for purchasing a hosting account, so you have a domain name and all of that good stuff to put your magic internet stuff on. The biggest reason we're starting with hosting early, a lot of times when you build something from scratch on the web, you can kind of build it locally and then wait until you're totally done and then upload it. But when we're working with WordPress, it's a little different because it uses a database, and WordPress basically has to be on a web server in order for it to run and for it to work. There are exceptions, there's ways to run it locally, but for all intents and purposes, we need a web server to install WordPress and get it running. The other thing we're going to do today is we're going to get a little nerdy, and I'm going to teach you guys some basic coding. We're using WordPress specifically so we don't have to code things from scratch, but it is extremely important and helpful for you as a good web designer or as someone who's kind of tinkering with developing in WordPress as well, which is what we're going to be doing, to understand kind of what's going on under the hood, to at least understand at a basic level. Some of you may have already had exposure to this and may already know some of this, but we're going to go through today for an hour or so as if you don't know anything about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we're going to write some code by hand that we'll be able to put up on the web server. It'll work locally for now, but we're just going to write some basic code so you can see how it all works together. And as we get into a big WordPress system, there'll be certain situations where we'll want to kind of understand what's going on under the hood with the code without necessarily having to write it all from scratch, but at least enough to understand what are the differences between the three programming languages that build the web, how are they put together, what will you typically be using, that type of stuff. So we will do some nerdy coding today. Let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and let's start by talking about hosting again. We are putting something on the internet, on the World Wide Webs. And in order to do that, we need what's called a hosting account. What a hosting account, typically we need two things. We need a domain name and we need a hosting account. You all know what a domain name is, I'm sure, your whatever.com. And some of you may or may not understand what a hosting account is. A hosting account is basically a computer that is sitting somewhere that's connected to the internet in various ways with different like MX records and IPs and all kinds of crazy stuff that a server company will set up. And you pay for them, you rent every month this space on their computer that allows you to put your files on the internet. And they will have it all set up for you to set up things like databases and email accounts. It is technically possible to take any old computer, set up a web server on it. As long as it's connected to the internet 24/7, you could actually host your own website if you were a super nerd IT professional and wanted to do such a thing. But most people don't do that, especially people that are just starting out. You rent your hosting from a company. That's what I do. That's what pretty much 99.9% of people with websites do. For the most part, most of us need to just buy a domain name and buy a hosting account. I talked before, I use GoDaddy, and I'm going to show you kind of where to get started on three different hosting setups. There's GoDaddy, and there's Bluehost, GoDaddy.com, Bluehost.com, and then one-in-one, which is Ionos.com. These are three of the most popular and the least expensive of the hosting companies. I could probably rattle off 10 more of them. Most of them are, for the most part, the same difference between Coke and Pepsi and Mountain Dew is just personal preference. They're all pretty much the same stuff on the inside. You log in once you pay for your account, once you choose your domain, pay for your hosting account, you're able to log in, get into what's called a control panel where you can do things like install WordPress and set up your website. That's exactly what we are going to end up doing. I'm going to step you through in each of these three companies kind of where you would go to begin kind of choosing your domain name and picking up your site. So the costs involved, typically there's two sides of it, but you can purchase them both together with a hosting account. The costs involved are the domain name itself that you have to purchase, which is typically a certain amount per year. I'm sitting on GoDaddy, and you can see right on their homepage, it takes me directly to a personal and business tab, and it's telling me that a .com is $11.99. It's give me a little asterisk. What's it telling me at the bottom? View legal product limitations. Okay, whatever. But typically somewhere around $15 a year traditionally is what a .com is. Now there's different types of, obviously, like there's .net, .org, there's all kinds of new ones that are always trying to come out with, like .us. Looks like we've got a .online, got a .guru, which is kind of funny. Usually you just want to go with the .com, it means commercial, and it's the most widely accepted and widely used, as you all probably know. Usually the way they do it is traditionally it's about $15 a year, and your hosting account can be anywhere from like $8 to 15 or 20 bucks every month. Now, usually when you sign up, you get breaks for the first year. Some of them may include the domain name for free. Some of them you'll get a break in price if you pay for the whole year. The domain name is always by the year. There's nowhere you're going to find that you can do a domain name month by month. You just buy your domain name for the year. And then the hosting account itself is month by month. So before I go more into the pricing, I'm going to show you how you can basically search to see if your domain exists. This is going to be your first step once you decide, okay, I've got either my credit card or my parents' credit card or whatever the case may be, to slap less than $20 on here and create my hosting. The first thing you want to do is come up with what is your domain name going to be. If you have a name of a project or something that you know your website's going to be, you could do it like that. So let me show you how we can see if it actually is a thing. So I'm going to search for my perfect domain name here on GoDaddy, and it's going to tell me if something is used or not. So I'm going to search for chrisbrown.com. I have a feeling this one's probably taken. And I'm going to search the domain. And chrisbrown.com is taken, and it tries to give me all of these options that I could purchase. Chris Brown bag, that's funny. Gives you a .com option, gives me all these .nets and all kinds of options instead. But ultimately, and it also gives you some broker fee, or you might be able to buy it from someone else. But if it says it's taken, that's not what you want. The next step is maybe I'll try putting a hyphen in between Chris and Brown, which I'm sure this is probably also taken. I'm going to search for it. And okay, here's another thing they do sometimes is if it says it's available, but it's like $2,000, sometimes a domain name, someone has what it's called is being parked. A parked domain is someone actually owns it, but they're just trying to get someone to want to buy it from them for more money than it's actually worth. So that's not good as well. So if I search for example, let me just type in a whole bunch of random letters and things. So thiscraziness.com, I have a feeling that is going to be available. Okay, and this is what it should look like if it is available. And again, this will look a little different on each GoDaddy, Bluehost, and Ionos. I'll go through each of them in short order. But it should say basically $1 a month for the first year. I think that's the deal, or something like that. It should say it's available. That's the deal with GoDaddy right now, is if we buy hosting, they'll give us the domain name for $1 a month for the first year, which is basically telling us it's going to charge us $12 for the domain name. I think, because I just had to renew mine, I think domain names for GoDaddy are now about $17.99 a year. So getting it for 12 bucks a year is at least like 25% off or something like that for now. Something more realistic for me, if I were to say maybe Christopher-Allen-Brown, which is my full name, yes, indeed, that is available. Even if I went to just Chris to make it a little shorter. Whoops, I continued to the cart. We'll come back to that. But anyway, that is available. So there's going to be a way on each of these. So Bluehost is another one. We'll take a look at the domains first, and then I'll come back and show you the hosting. So here we go. I clicked on domains, and now I can search for the same thing. We'll search for interactive hyphen. Now, typically when you have more than one word, a hyphen is thrown in between. That's something I would recommend, especially if you do like first and last name. You can try it with or without a hyphen. That's pretty common. Interactive multimedia design.com. See, this one already has the .com on there. You can choose different ones, but .com is really what we want. I'm going to search for that. And it's available. Amazing. That's great. And you can see that it would be $13 for the year. And then they're trying to add on this privacy and protection as we purchase hosting. A lot of times with companies like GoDaddy or Bluehost, one of the trade-offs of them being so inexpensive is they'll try and inundate you with things that you don't necessarily need. So you don't need privacy and protection from your domain. So this one would be only $13. I could add that to my cart and poof, I'm halfway there. Go over to Ionos, same thing. This one does seem to be the cheapest, not by a lot, but by a little. I'll go through that in a minute, but same thing here. We can check for our domain right here. Let's see if CNN.com is available. I bet it's not. I bet someone already has that. And it's searching. And of course it's not, so it's showing us all these different options that you can. But if I were to choose like CNN, please be my domain.com, check. Now it's available. Same thing here, 1 year for a year, then just $15 a year. So this is slightly cheaper than GoDaddy, where GoDaddy, I believe, is like $17 or $18 a year after the first year. But they're all going to be really close and comparable to each other. So domain name is the first step. What if I want to change my domain name later on? So technically, with most hosting accounts, if you buy the cheapest basic account, you're only allowed one domain name per account. And it is possible to change it, but you have to go through some extra work to do so. So for example, if I had, just ChristopherAllenBrown.com and I built my whole portfolio site and I put it all up there, and then I decided at some point, you know what, that's a lot for people to type out. Maybe I can shorten it to chrisbrownportfolio.com or something like that. I don't know, whatever. When you decide you want to change it, typically, first of all, you would have to buy a separate domain. So you can't just like, oh, I already paid for this one, so now I can switch it to another one. You'd certainly, each domain is like its own piece of real estate that you have to own. And then if you have a second domain, you could have the option of either increasing your hosting account a few bucks a month, so you're allowed to host multiple websites on the hosting account, so you could have more than one domain and more than one site on the same hosting account. Or that's personally what I do. I have a multi-site. I can have up to 100 sites on my hosting account on GoDaddy, so that I can host more than just my portfolio site. I can test, develop, and I can even host client sites on my site. Or if you just want to replace it, then that's a process, because WordPress is intricately with its database tied to your domain name, which is why we want to kind of set it up all first and together. So it is totally possible, but it is certainly a process to not only change your domain name for the hosting, but also to kind of change and migrate your WordPress site to work with a different domain name. So now let's talk about the actual hosting. So on all three of these, GoDaddy, Bluehost, Ionos, if there's another one for some reason you would want to use, you're more than welcome to. There's dozens of them out there. They're all generally about the same for 99% of what they do. So the domain is one part. The next part is hosting. And hosting is the part where, so I'm looking at GoDaddy's again. This is the part where we actually have the per month that we have to buy to actually put our website files on. With GoDaddy, the hosting, there's always going to be basic web hosting, and then WordPress hosting, and then there's other levels. And even though we're building a WordPress account, and you'll see this may be different on these different hosting companies, which is why we're going to check them out real quick. Usually the basic plan is the cheapest. The WordPress plan is maybe a little bit more. You can have either one. So with whatever company you use, whichever one is cheaper is fine, because we can very easily set up and install a WordPress account or a WordPress site on a regular hosting account. WordPress hosting accounts are a thing because WordPress is so popular. I'll talk more about this when we get into it, that like more than 25% of all commercial websites use it. Because of that, there's certain things that hosting companies will do automatically for you, but I'm going to teach you how to do everything yourself and manage it yourself. So it's perfectly okay to have just a regular web hosting. So if I were to choose GoDaddy, I'm going to click learn more, but I can see the cheapest one. Well, I guess this VPS, but that's different. We're looking for basic regular web hosting. And I'm going to choose this. It says it's $6 a month, starting at $6 a month. Usually the way they do that is if you pay for the entire year at once, it'll be $6 a month. So 6 times 12, what is that? 72 bucks. Or it would be more like $8 to $10 a month if you pay month by month. So they'll usually give you a little less per month if you pay for the whole year. So if I click on learn more under web hosting here, and now I can see all the actual packages. So these are all the basic hosting. You're only going to need the cheapest economy package. You don't need any of the deluxe or ultimate or maximum. I have the deluxe one because, as I explained, it's the difference of being able to host one website versus being able to host unlimited websites within your storage and whatnot. So what this is telling me is it's as low as, again, they're kind of cheesy like this, that it's as low as $6 a month, and then it's as low as $9 a month when you renew. But I already know what this means is these are the prices if you buy a year at a time. If you buy a month at a time, they go up a little bit. So it's probably more like $8 to $9 a month, and then it's probably like $12 or $13 a month. So that's GoDaddy. Let's take a look at their WordPress prices. So this is saying as low as $5.99, as low as $8.99. Maybe actually if we add it to the cart, we can see those differences. So yeah, right away when I add it to the cart, they're trying to get me to buy it for 3 years. And that's where the as low as $6 comes along. So if I buy it for 3 years at once, we've got this, and we can go all the way down, it looks like, to, they do have a 3-month option. There may even be a way to do month to month. I know there is for other ones. There used to be for GoDaddy. Maybe 3 months is the limit now, but this is pretty much what we need, and this is giving you $11 a month. So you'd be paying, we don't need this website backup. No thanks, we will back up our own website. So just the hosting, $32 for 3 months. Plus we would need to add our domain name into this as well. So it could be close to $40 to take care of the whole thing through GoDaddy. Now let's take a look at the WordPress hosting. If I go back here. Okay, so here's our WordPress hosting plans. And you can see that they're pretty much about the same, but slightly more expensive. So I'll click to add to cart, and it's basically, okay, so this one lets me do it a month at a time. That's weird that the basic only lets you do 3 months. The WordPress lets you do it a month at a time, but it's $13 a month instead of $11 a month. So it's an extra couple bucks for it like this, but you could do it this way. You could just get 1 month at a time, managed WordPress. But like I said, the basic one is a little cheaper. So let's move on and compare these prices to the other 2 hosting accounts. I'm pretty sure Ionos is still the cheapest, but let's take a look at Bluehost. So if I look at hosting, and this seems to be quite a bit cheaper. We've got shared hosting, again, as low as $4 a month, normally $8 a month, 36-month term. So we're going to learn more. And here's our basic options. We're going to select the cheapest one. Oh, and so a lot of them, as you choose the hosting, will actually take you through the process of creating your domain name and choosing your domain name with it. So look like GoDaddy's process was a little separate, where you just go through in 2 separate ways and add it to your cart. Let's try it like this. So if we search for hello crazy internet people.com, hit next. And we would fill all this information out to buy it, but then down here's the package information. So no, I do not want it for 3 years. It looks like Bluehost is only allowing me to do it by a whole year at once, which isn't very cool because then you have to pay. I mean, it's relatively cheap. It's $6 a month compared to either $11 or $13 a month doing it through GoDaddy. But it looks like you have to pay for the whole year, just 70 bucks, which is kind of crappy. We don't need these extras. Don't need any extras at all. All right, so anyway, that's relative. And then let's take a look at the Ionos, because I'm pretty sure this one is still the cheapest. I'm gonna go back to, all right, so here we've got, it's showing on their homepage, G Suite, web hosting, WordPress hosting. So both of these are saying that it's starting at $1 a month. Okay, let's take a look at each of the web hosting and WordPress hosting and see what their real prices are. So as you can see, hosting companies always trying to upsell you, and they're always with things you don't need, and they're always trying to fool you with the pricing. And it's like, hey, it's only $1 a month, but that means you have to buy it for this many years, and they've got all kinds of gimmicks around it. So it's usually helpful to have someone like me to help navigate you through what exactly you need to get. So let's take a look at the packages that they have. Okay, so Essential. So this is really weird how they're giving you the $1 a month option on the business, but the Essential one, which is then $10 a month after the first 12 months. So it looks like that for 12 bucks, you can get an entire year of the business account, but then after that, it's going to cost you $10 a month. With the Essential, you can do the entire 12, you can do the entire year for $4 a month. So for 48 bucks, and then it's only $6 a month afterwards. So I guess you kind of have to ask yourself, now let's try the Essential and let's see if we can do it month by month, or if it's forcing us to do it for a whole year. Let's see what kind of pricing we get then. So right away, when I choose the hosting, it's stepping me through the domain name process, which is cool. So it's making me realize that I need a domain name associated with this. So we'll use our hello crazy webpeeps.com. We will check it. You can see I've got a letter 1 step out of 5 up here. All right, hellocrazywebpeeps.com is available. And the first year is free, then it's just $15 a year. All right, but anyway, we've got this, great. So I'm gonna add it to the cart. So it kind of forces you to use a domain name. You definitely don't need any of this extra stuff. So I'm just gonna hit continue. You see it's trying to add like malware and storage and marketing and all this crap. I don't need any of this crap. You only need a basic domain name with no extras, and the most basic of hosting with no extras as well. Okay, so now here we get to, oh cool, so you can choose 1 month at a time through this. So I could choose 1 month and it would only be $6. So this is probably the cheapest way to get started. Let's go through it like this first. So if you were to just choose the web hosting essentials through Ionos, choose 1 month, and we've already got our domain name. It's free for a year. We don't need any extras. Going to continue. Let's see what we end up with here. So we literally end up having $6, and it'll be $6 per month. That's probably the most straightforward way. And then what they'll do is they'll set you up on a credit card, and until you tell it to stop, every month it'll renew for that $6. And then after a year, I don't think the $6 changes, but the domain name will update for $15. So let's see if we can get that even cheaper than $6 if we decided, okay, I'm going to pay for this myself, and I only want it for this class. I don't care about after this class. Let's use their current deal, which seems to be, we'll take a look at the WordPress next. But their deal down here seems to be the business account. So difference is, instead of just one website, you can have multiple websites. Instead of having limits on storage and database, which is way more than we need for a single site, you can have a bunch of other stuff. So if I were to continue through this, let's just choose this domain name. Whoops, invalid characters. We'll see if someone just has a whole bunch of Fs.com. How about that? Hey, it's available. So I'm going to add to the cart. Continue. That other stuff is probably still in the cart, but continue again. I'm going to remove the original stuff. All right, so, okay, I see. So, yeah, if we choose a year for this one, it's only $1. It's got the .com, free private registration, sure. I think that takes care of everything. I'm going to continue. Okay, so it is possible to get an account with Ionos that'll last a year for $1. To get this versus the $6, difference is you have a more beefed up hosting account, and if you keep it over a year, the price is going to be more per month. It's going to be, let's go back to that and see. Back to their packages. Click on the home page, get started on web hosting. Even click on see packages, takes me down to it. Okay, so then it's $10 a month. So this would be the cheapest way possible to get out. Oh, okay, interesting. It's saying 12 months for $1 a month. Maybe the first year is only $1. I'm not real sure. The promotion of this is a little confusing. It looks like it should be 12 bucks if it's $1 a month, then $10 a month. I'm not sure why it was only $1. Maybe I was only choosing it for 1 month at a time. I didn't have the 12 months chosen. But regardless, one of these two are going to be your cheapest option. Why would you use GoDaddy or Bluehost instead of Ionos if it's cheaper? Just because they've been around longer. You know, if I were first starting out, now we're buying my domain and my site again, I just renewed it for the year, but I would probably use Ionos just because it's cheaper, and I don't see any reason not to. If we were a super large company and had a website with like millions of users every month, then having a larger company that would help us scale a little better might have some value as well. But for just setting up your first couple of sites, this will work just fine. Now let's take a quick look at their website or their WordPress hosting. With GoDaddy and Bluehost, the WordPress hosting was a little bit more expensive. Let's see what it is in Ionos. And again, the difference is typically, oh, interesting. That is very interesting that with this company, the WordPress hosting is actually a little bit cheaper. I can see the difference though, that even with their business one, you're only allowed one site. With the other business one, you're allowed multiple sites, but that should be all we need. Yeah, you get a little bit less. So you get 100 gigs of storage, you get 10 databases with the other one, but you don't need any of that. So if you were to use Ionos, the WordPress hosting looks like it actually would be the right way to go because theirs is a little bit cheaper. So you can get it for $3 a month and then $4 after the first 12, or you can get it for $1 a month or $8 after the first 12. So this would probably be what I would recommend to get your cheapest hosting possible. And you could at least, if nothing else, just sign up for $1. I realize that was a mouthful and a lot of technical stuff, but it's important. We're building things on the internet. We're going to learn how to code and do WordPress and do as much as we can without code and everything in between. So this is really where we start, is we have to have a place to actually put things on the internet where people can go to it and view it. Sublime Text. We're going to use a text editor that's made for code, and I'll show you the difference. I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and let me get to my text edit, which is my basic text editor that comes with my Mac. I have a preference set to be a dark background. It'll probably be a lighter background. So let me see, where can I grab some HTML from that'll make sense? I'll just grab it from one of these. Grab this published template. Doesn't really matter. Oops, it's not what I wanted. I want to actually open this with text edit. Okay, So I just opened a file that's got a bunch of code in it. Oops. We don't care about it, just besides the fact that, as you can see, it's a bunch of code and it's all just white text on a dark background. I think by default, without changing the preferences, you would open up either Notepad or WordPress or text edit, and you would have a white background that you would just type black text on, just like you would expect in any word processor. Now, the problem is there's no what's called code hinting or color coding. So this is all just white, and it's great. If you're a pro, you would get everything and know what everything is and be able to just type and code like some kind of super nerd. But if we use a different type of program, a different type of text editor that's meant for code, I can open the same thing in the one I use called Atom. So I'll show you 3 different options you can download. And that opens up, and now this is the same thing, but you can see there's pretty colors. And if I were to start typing things out, there's just certain shortcuts that come about and things that it finishes for you automatically based on the type of code you have. So this is an HTML file and it knows that. And I could go in and choose plain text. These are all these different programming languages, a bunch of different types of HTML. I could say that we're typing CSS, we're typing JavaScript. It'll know based on your document's extension what type of file it is, and then it will allow you to see the correct code coloring and code hinting, and ultimately just makes it easier to code by hand. Again, we're not going to be doing a lot of coding by hand in this class, but for this one day, I kind of really wanted to show you guys the basics of how you would go about creating a web page and things from scratch. And then you'll better understand why everyone uses WordPress when you see how much power and value that it gives you out of the box without having to code everything from scratch. So this is the first step that I'm going to want from you all, is to download a code editor that we can use. Now there's 3 different options I'm going to give you. One is called Sublime Text. All of these are pretty much the same. Doesn't matter which one, just whatever seems nice to you. This is the oldest of the 3, but probably still the most widely used. It just gives you all kinds of options for code hinting and developing and things like that. Sublime Text is one. The one I used is called Atom. So it's either sublimetext.com. So we get to Sublime Text. You can just download it and install it. Or I use Atom, which is atom.io. It has this fun little squid character here. And this, it'll know whether you're on a Mac or a PC, and you'll download this. So I use the text editor Atom. Again, Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew for these, just whatever's your preference. Or there's actually one that comes with Adobe, with the Adobe suite, called Brackets. I think it's still a thing. Yeah, it is. Choose one of those 3 right now, either brackets.io or atom.io or sublimetext.com. Doesn't really matter, but these are all widely used out in the industry. And download one of those, please, and get it ready to use. For most projects, you typically want to start with a folder to put your files in. Website is no different. So I'm actually going to create a new folder on my desktop. I'm just going to call it My First Website. Maybe it's not my first one. I'll just call it my website. Doesn't matter, whatever you call it, as long as we have a spot for it. Now the idea, what we want to do is we're going to want to open a file using our new program and save it inside of this folder. So with Atom, it opens this up for me. It automatically opens up a new file. Whether you're using Atom or not, we just want to open a basic new file. We don't even need to choose what type of code hinting, because we're just going to save the file as a particular name. So before we even write anything in it, I created a new file, and now I want to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to find the folder in my desktop. I'm going to put it inside of this My Website folder. I'm going to save it as index.html. index.html. This is a very particular standardized file name for a home page of a website is index.html. Go ahead and save that. All an HTML document is just a text file, and it has this specific file extension, index.html, and we just want it saved inside of our website folder. The reason it's named index is because all web hosts just happen to know that when you put a folder of web files up on the hosting account, that it will, when you go to that folder in your domain name, I'll show you how that all works later on, it will automatically open up the file named index.html. That's just kind of a hosting thing that's been around for as long as the internet, that it knows that named file is what represents the home page, and it'll open it up automatically. Now locally, meaning we're not on a server, we're just on our local computers, you can just double click on the file and it'll open in whatever your default browser is. Ideally, your default browser when developing is Chrome, but we don't have to worry about that too much in this class. We're not going to be writing too much code. So if I double click this, it opens a tab in Chrome for me, has a big blank white screen, so we haven't wrote anything in it. And it even says the name of it up here, index.html. So when we write an HTML file, the first thing we do, HTML is a series of tags. What I mean by tags is they have these little brackets around them, a less than sign and a greater than sign. And that's how HTML knows, is like, oh, this is a command in HTML. It tells it to do something. HTML is the basic building blocks of all web pages in the internet. Everything you see in the internet has an HTML page that has everything inside of it. The first thing we need to add is we need to tell it that it's an HTML5 document. And to do that, it looks like this. So on line 1, you want to type within a tag, meaning when I say that within a tag, it means within less than and greater than symbols like this. You want to type in all caps, a exclamation point, and then doc type, and then space HTML. And let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. It should be a little easier for you to see now when we type out. And that basically tells it, you can hit return afterwards, that basically tells this document, or tells the browser specifically, hey, this is an HTML5 document. All of the most recent stuff is ready to be used in here. All right, so that just tells what document it is. The next couple of tags are tags that are included in all HTML documents, and one is the HTML tag. All right, so we type a tag. Again, that word just means it's some stuff in between these brackets. And we put the word HTML, and this tells it, hey, this is going to be HTML. And let's put a couple spaces, and then we're going to close the tag. Most tags in HTML, once they are opened, they have to be closed. And what that means is you go like this. Oops. You type the exact same tag, except for there's a / before the tag name inside of the brackets. And that basically is open tag, end tag. And that tells us that anything in between these two tags is part of whatever this tag is. It's part of the HTML. Now, there are a lot of tags that have a closing tag once we start into building things, but there are certain ones that don't, that we just need to set up an HTML file. So the next one down is called the head. So we're going to have a head, and then let's actually put a couple spaces in and close that as well. The head is actually an end tag. And what this means is this is the header of the HTML document. So everything in between, whoops, everything in between these two tags is an HTML document. This is saying the type of HTML document. And then everything inside the head is part of the header. And inside of the head, we need a title tag. And then Actually, let's put on the same line the end title tag. And then in between these two little brackets, let's put a title of our website, which is going to be, I'll say, my amazing hand-coded website. All right, so what we have right now is we have nested tags, meaning that, all of this, the head and the title are inside of the HTML. So we have the head inside of the two HTML tags. And now we have the title that's inside of the two head tags. And that's just the structure. It's just the way it works. So if I were to save this right now, I'm going to save this file. Command S, so you can go up to File, Save. There we go. Should be this index.html. And if I double click it to open in the browser, I still don't see anything in the page itself. But if you look at the tab actually has the name of the title. So now it says My Amazing Hand-Coded Website. So now you can see that's how the browser tab records what the name of the actual page is from the title tag. All right. Now let's move on and do the rest of what's necessary to set up just a basic HTML page. So we always need the doc type, the HTML tags, the head tag, a title tag. The only other one that we absolutely need, which is after the head, is we need a body tag. And you can see as I'm typing here, this is one thing that the code editors do for me, is as soon as I start to type a tag, it all of a sudden gives me a list of like every HTML tag there is possible. And then if I start to type one, like body, it starts to filter and show me the ones it thinks I want. So if I were to just click that, it'll automatically type it out for me. There's little shortcuts and code hints and things that'll keep popping up like that. But for right now, you don't really need to use any of them. We're just kind of typing things out as they are. So we have a body tag, and then we'll put a space, and we have the end body tag. All right, this now is the basic template setup of any HTML page, and anything that we see, I'm going to switch back to my browser. Anything that we see on the actual page, not necessarily in the tab, is inside of the body tags. All right, so this is the basic setup. We need to say this is the type of file it is. Everything's within HTML tags, and then all of the stuff within the head. This is basically stuff that doesn't show up on the web page itself. There's other things we'll add in here. We'll add our CSS styles in here. We could even add JavaScript in here. The head is the area where basically you include other files. There's a lot of things you can do in the head, but it's all stuff that's like not actually viewed on the page. All the stuff that's actually viewed on the page is inside of the body tag. All right, so one of the most popular tags to put inside of the body tag is what's called a paragraph tag, and that is just a P. So if we put a P, and then, whoops, undo is always your friend, and then I type some text. So in this P, I'm going to say, this is a paragraph. And then I have to end the tag. So now I will end P, and that lets it know, okay, this tag is over. It's ready to go look for a new tag, but it is within the body. And I'm going to go ahead and save my file here. And now if I switch back to my browser, I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. And there we go. Now I have written stuff on the page. Now I have a web page that has a name, or title, My Amazing Hand-Coded Website, and it has this is a paragraph text that I typed in our little paragraph thing. Pretty cool. We're now coding our website, right? Now, one little thing that when you're coding like this, typically when you have a tag that's inside of another tag, usually things are indented with a tab like this. So technically, even the head is indented from the HTML like this. And then body would be as well. Oops. Sometimes you can accidentally select some things and get these little 3 dots. Click the 3 dots, that'll bring it back. It's a way to kind of hide and show text. But all I'm doing is I'm putting the cursor before the tag, and I'm just hitting tab, and I'm tabbing these things in. Just like they were a paragraph, all of HTML was originally made to basically put documents on the internet. So a lot of things like not animations and characters and fun stuff, but documents with text and images. So most of the nomenclature and the structure and everything is kind of like writing a document. So in this case, it's just like indenting paragraphs. Whenever you have a new paragraph, when you've got tons and tons and tons of tags, it helps the legibility of like what's at what level to indent things like this. So at the very top level is our HTML tag. And then indented within that is our head tag, indented, our body tags at the same level. And then our title is inside of our head tag. Our paragraph is inside of our body tag. So whenever we nest things, we're creating this hierarchy using this kind of tabbed layout is what the standard is that most people use. So writing text, besides just a paragraph, is another type of text, and that's called a header text inside of HTML. And we create tags called an H tag, and as soon as I type it in, you can see it tries to show me heading 1 through heading 6, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. We're going to start with H1, which is the biggest one. So we're going to make our heading tag, open the tag just by creating the tag. And then after the tag, I'm going to type a header and say, this is a large header. How about this is the main page header. And then once I've typed something, I'll do end H1 and end my tag like this. So it knows that everything between the open H1 and the closed H1 is that type of content. So now if I save it now, go back to my browser and refresh it, I can see that this is the main page header. It's bigger and it's bolder. And we'll get to how we can change size, font, color, all that different stuff. We actually have to use CSS for that. But for actually just the HTML, we will go ahead and, we use these, what's default, basically. So the different headers, H1, H2, H3, I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and copy, instead of this is the main page header, maybe I'll say this is a page header. Now for right now, I'm going to copy this H1 tag 2 different times. I'm going to change it to, maybe I'll copy it 3 different times, so I got 4 total. I'm going to change it to H2, H3, and H4. You can see it's highlighting, as soon as I change H4, it's highlighting me, showing me, hey, these tags don't match. That's another advantage using a text editor. So change it to H4. And now I've got 5 different lines of text in the body of my HTML document, an H1 through H4 and a paragraph text. If I save this, again, I'm just hitting Command S to save. And I peek at it here in my browser, hit refresh. You can see that each of the different heading tags has a different default text style. Okay, so the regular paragraph is just like 12-point font Times New Roman, regular font, and then the font size gets bigger, and I think they're all just bold when it comes to the header tags. So you can start to lay things out in an HTML document according to like what type of content is what, headers and subheaders. One thing that's important about this, and we'll start to see this come back in certain ways when we're working with WordPress, is it's important for you just to understand kind of the nomenclature or the way things are named and the terms that are used. You'll want to understand the limitations of like, oh, well, this has to be an actual H1 tag because search engines, for example, and Google rankings will give a lot to what type of content is put in what type of HTML tag. So there's a lot there. We'll touch on that a little in this class, but not too much. What's important for now is just that you understand kind of this basic way to start building HTML. I'm going to cut these other H2, H3, and H4 out and leave it back to just have my original H1 tag, my original paragraph tag. And I'll say this, yeah, this is a page header. Only instead of paragraph form, maybe I'll say page heading, and I'll put it in all caps, or not all caps, but capped words like this with no text or with no period or punctuation. That's usually how a header looks, more like that. All right, so we have text, and next I want to show you how we can add an image, right? So we have our page heading, we have, you know, a header, regular body text. Next, we can put in an actual image. Now, before we're going to put in an image, we need to get an image to put online. I'm going to just steal one from Google Images. I'll go to Google Images, and I will type in, how about baby monkey? And we have all these cute baby monkey pictures. I'm going to go ahead and choose this little baby monkey in a blanket, the first one. And obviously, you don't need to just steal things online. You'll have your own images. But I'm going to go ahead and save this image as, and I want to save it inside of my website folder. It's got a big, crazy name here. I'm just going to name it baby-monkey.jpg. And now I can close that tab. If I look at my Finder here, I've got my baby monkey JPEG now in the root of my website, along with my HTML file. And now the tag, let me go back to my code. The tag for putting an image in goes like this. So the image tag is img. All right. Now the image tag is a little bit different in the sense that it closes itself. And I'll show you what I mean by that. We don't have an open image tag and then an end image tag. It doesn't really work like that. It's like we have the image tag, and then inside of it, we put some other stuff, okay? So we have an image tag, and then inside of it, we want to put the source, src equals, and then some quotes. All right, so an image tag ends up looking like this. And within the quotes, we want to type out the name of our image. Now, we would also need to type the path of our image. I'll show you this in a moment if we were in any other folder, but because our image is sitting in the same exact folder as our index.html, we can just call it directly. So I can say my image source is baby-monkey.jpg. And once again, just the subtle color hinting makes this easier. Before I typed that, if you could see when I first typed a quote, it automatically types the other quote and then sticks the cursor in the middle. There's a lot of little time-saving things that if you're coding a lot, it helps you with. So now that I have this image tag here, I can hit save, go back to my browser, hit refresh. Boom, now I have a baby monkey. And now I can maybe change my text to say, cute baby monkey is my header. And maybe I'll change the paragraph to say, look at this amazingly cute baby monkey, bang, save it, go back to my browser, hit refresh. And now we have my amazing hand-coded website, cute baby monkey. Look at this amazingly cute baby monkey. And we have an image in there. And now you can see how just by default, without doing any CSS styling of where things are on the screen or how big they are or what font or anything like that, we can add text and imagery to an HTML document just by using these tags. This is about as basic of an HTML page as you'll find, but you know, in order to have the title and the header and the text and the image, we need to have this structure of the HTML doc type, the actual HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag, and then everything that kind of goes inside of them. Have a bookmark in your mind to understand kind of in a general sense what HTML is and how it works. You'll see as we get into WordPress in certain situations where that will be helpful. I'm going to save my file. Next up is let's talk about CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and CSS is the design layer. All right, the HTML is the content layer, meaning all of your actual images and text and any real content is going to be put in HTML tags and organized that way. CSS is the next language that we put in this same page, and that's what allows us to change the design and set up rules about how the content looks and how it's laid on the site. So instead of just the default of left justified and everything goes in a column here, we can start to lay out whether things are centered, where they're positioned on the screen, you know, different properties that have to do with the design. And that's just a separate, that's not handled in HTML, that's handled with CSS. Now, we can end up adding a CSS code and JavaScript code, which I'll get into that as well, all onto the same page. So we can have one single HTML file that has HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, 3 different programming languages, all within the same page. And we'll start off that way. To write CSS, there's a specific tag that goes inside of the head tag. So let's go under the title here. And under the title, we can put a tag called style. And then let's hit return a couple times and end style. And then let's put our cursor in between the two and indent it in. And this style tag is special because this tells us that anything inside of this style tag is actually CSS code. So this is where we can write styles directly into our document.